Hey there, and welcome to the 2024 Creative Marketing Podcast. I'm talking with Linda Goldfarb, who was on the Authentic Online Marketing Podcast a couple of weeks ago in episode 113 called Leverage Your Podcasting Personality. And she has written a fantastic book about podcasting and how to go about it if you want to guest or if you want to host. And little hint, she recommends being a guest first and then hosting, which we also do and have recorded an episode on authentic online marketing about that. And you'll find that in that episode. It's linked there. So we continued the conversation in last week's private podcast. And then today I wanted to include this little clip because it's gold, actually. We're talking about how to keep the conversation flowing smoothly as a podcast host. So there are several ways to do this. And whether you're new or you've been doing it for a while, maintaining a steady, engaging conversation can sometimes be a challenge, as you will see from our very candid talk. This was from really behind the scenes when we first met on Zoom to record that episode on the Authentic Online Marketing Podcast. I was debriefing her on what we were going to talk about. There had been a disconnect. Something happened in the internet universe. And the email that I sent her, she had not received about what we were going to talk about. And so we needed to talk about that. But I always meet, and you'll hear that Linda does this too, with the person and kind of debrief on what we're going to talk about. And you can feel free to say this or this and just kind of the whole vibe of the thing. When we realized that she hadn't gotten my notes, then we talked through that. And then this was just a regular outpouring of that conversation. And she and I even referenced, she even said something to the effect of, you may find something here that would go well in your podcast too, just from this organic conversation. And I did. So that is what this is from. And you're going to learn some proven techniques to ensure your podcast episodes are seamless and engaging, or at least it just helps ensure that things just go better. I will give you a tip. You can always edit stuff out, and you probably should. I do that a lot. I do lots of editing. So does my podcast editor, my son. So when we start talking in this, you'll see she's going to talk about how some of it can be really, really challenging. You'll hear like some of the angst there between the two of us as we're talking. So I'm going to wrap this up at the end. I don't normally do intros, outros, but I do want to give you a kind of a heads up on what's going on here, so you'll know. All right, listen in.
Yeah, with some of it, it can be really, really challenging. And one of the things I do as well is similar to what we're doing is I talk to them ahead of time and share the purpose. This is what we're doing. This is why. So if you go ahead and take this much time with this, if you're going too long, I will probably do this. And they go, oh, okay. So
yeah,
that's different than in the time of radio. In radio, I didn't really have an opportunity to engage directly with my guests until I had them. And then with that, there was some of that moment of, and they're about to breathe. And now please take a breath. Please take a breath. And that's why sometimes it might even be good if we have built-in commercial time in our podcast.
It is nice that you can edit a lot out. So I've been podcasting for 4 years, and I had a guest early on that could have brought me a lot of traffic, which she didn't, but she had been on a major stage, and I thought, well, this is going to be great. And that lady didn't bring one bit of value. And she talked nonstop. Like, I had to interrupt her. And I ended up cutting at least half of what she said out. So it is beneficial to brief your guests to please take a breath and allow time for response or whatever.
And also the style of podcasting, the style of my episode, preferably they've done what I've said in the book. Listen to the host, listen to as we are hosting, know who you're bringing on. And sometimes we can be picky. And because I listen. I listen. That's our job as a host.
Yes, it is.
To be the conduit of concise or meaty content for our listeners. So even when I have a guest, and this years ago too, the ones that would come in and talk forever like they've been starved, and they're afraid that if they stop talking, then you're going to be able to cut them. You're going to cut them off, and you're not going to. And I'm just wanting to go, oh my word, stop it! What are you thinking? And another reason for the book is to be able to say, hey, let's do this. No, and that's fine. And there may even be something during some of our prelim that you might use as a segue piece too.
Yes. Yeah. Like you just said a sentence as you were saying it. I was like, when you said our job is to listen, I was like, that would be really great for an intro sentence before the real intro.
Before the real intro. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So are you good?
I am good. And just so I know, our length of time here is...
We'll probably talk until the top of the hour, but this episode will be between 20 and 25 minutes long.
Okay.
And then the rest I will cut up into snippets to share on the private podcast.
Perfect.
All right.
Whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm yours.
All right. I'm going to try not to be nervous today because the teacher is in the room.
No, we're all good. It's all good.
All right. Well, let me pray and then we'll get started. What do you think about this episode? Hearing some behind the scenes debriefing and chatter. I know the conversation started out in the middle of what we're talking about. And then we ended up, I told her how things were going to go. And I thought maybe you would enjoy just a little bit of behind the scenes, pull back the curtain. This is what Ruthie does when she is interviewing a guest. This is what's said behind the scenes and not said on the show. And we had a really good laugh there at the end. And in fact, how we ended with the laugh that the teacher is in the room, I used that just very off the cuff, fun moment to start episode 113 of the Authentic Online Marketing Podcast, because I thought, this is so fun. People will love this. And that's just part of me. That's part of my personality. Everyone knows I break out into song or do crazy things, or we laugh a lot on the show. Part of my purpose in life is to bring joy to others, to bless others with joy. And so I want to do that in all that I produce. My podcast, my books, my speaking, my coaching. It's kind of what I do. And so you want to do that too. You want to plug in your personality into your podcast, but that's beside the point. That's not really. It's part of the point. But here is what we talked about again, just to sum up. Before diving into a conversation, you've got to prep. You got to research your guest's background, understand their areas of expertise, and prepare a list of open-ended questions. And that'll not only show that you're interested, but also help you steer the conversation effortlessly. Now, the guest that I referred to, I sent questions, but it was just like one long conversation that they shared and would not come up for air. It was on me, and it's on you to vet your guests. As I said, this was early on, and I got a pitch from this person to be on my podcast. And I thought, wow, they've been on XYZ stage. They will bring me traffic. Probably. People will listen to them. They are probably really wise and knowledgeable on this topic that I want them to speak on. And I listened to their presentations, and they sounded great. So I thought, okay, this is good. But this is where I want you to get this takeaway, really vet and be jealous of your platform and zealous for it. And more importantly, obsessing about your audience. That's something we also said in episode 113 of the podcast. And that is to serve your listeners. Obsess about your audience, know who they are, and don't just dump information on them. And I wasn't trying to dump, but I should have been so eager to add to my platform that I had someone that I barely knew. Come on. And you should do that too. Active listening also is one of the most important aspects of maintaining a smooth conversation. Show that you're engaged and all that. But you also may need to break the conversation. You may need to signal to that person. You may need to say to them in the prelim, when you're doing your pre-recording, say, I may give you a signal. One of the people that interviewed me, I think it was Sue Donaldson, in our pre-recording talk, she said, please try not to talk more than 2 to 3 minutes, not long paragraphs, because I want to ask you more questions. And I thought that is a very kind way of saying, don't talk too much. And you could even say, I'll give you a signal if I need to say something or want to interject something. Because if you are recording with video, which I do recommend, even if you don't use the video, then you'll be able to signal to that person and you can read each other's, hopefully, vibes if the other person is self-aware. Number 1, prep is key. It's crucial. Know your guest and have open-ended questions ready, but vet your guest well. Number 2, engage through active listening. Show genuine interest. Ask follow-up questions. Don't be so, I want to throw this in there. Don't be so married to your questions that you're thinking about how to interject the next question and reading that question verbatim. It's real important to make the conversation organic. Yes, stick to the topic, but also be open to letting it flow, just like a normal conversation. Treat it like a normal conversation, and then it goes so much easier. There's just a good flow there, and the audience will appreciate you for that, and they'll come back and listen for more. And then number 3, use smooth transitions and manage the pace to maintain a steady flow, which basically is what I just said. So if you're listening the last week of October and the first week of November, look at the notes, tap in on the show notes, and be sure to listen to Linda Goldfarb's episode 113 before next week, because we're going to have a new episode drop. We're doing that once a month right now on Authentic Online Marketing. And then these episodes here are dropping 2 to 3 times a month. So be sure to check back here to listen each time. If you ever lose this app, you'll always get an email saying a new episode has dropped. But if you forget where it is, go to your podcast app of choice where you always listen and scroll and look for the 2024 Marketing for Creatives podcast and the pink image. And then you'll be able to catch up. You'll be able to tap on that and listen to the most recent podcast episode. If you still can't find it, go back to that email and it will tell you at the end how to get here. And then be looking for my newsletter because that comes out 1 to 2 times a month. Right now, it's just been going out once a month. But if I have something special, you want to open that too. Okay? All right. We'll see you next week on the Authentic Online Marketing Podcast.